This is a Lamborghini Diablo Sv, a car which name quite literally translates as Devil Super Speed. I've pretty much just landed in my Need for Speed fantasy. The Diablo, the successor to the Countach, was built between 1990 and 2001 and was the first Lamborghini capable of breaking the 200-mile-an-hour barrier. The design of the car was contracted to Marcello Gandini, who designed some of the world's most iconic sports cars, and the Diablo's two predecessors, the Countach and Miura. But in 1987, when Chrysler bought Lamborghini, its management was uncomfortable with Gandini's designs and commissioned its design team in Detroit to execute a third extensive redesign, smoothing out the infamous sharp edges and corners of Gandini's original design and leaving him famously unimpressed. In fact, Gandini was so disappointed with the softened shape that he'd later realised his original design in the Chisetta Marauder V16T. Thankfully though, what the Americans did to Gandini's design resulted in one of the most striking Lamborghinis ever made. And from the front, from the side, from the back, from pretty much wherever you look at this car, it is pure theatre. But gone are the sharp lines and strakes of Gandini's original design in place of a much sleeker body shape. Now round the front of the SV, gone are the quad fog lights and you've just got the two either side. And then what's quite nice on this particular model is when you get closer to the Lamborghini badge, you notice that it's this lovely dark blue instead of black. It's really gorgeous colour when you catch it in the light there. There's an awful lot going on straight away. Obviously you notice the pop-up headlights, but then the proportions of the car got quite a sort of narrow front to it, and then you can see the hips flare out, which is accentuated more when you look from the back of the car. We've got vents down on the front spoiler, up here on the bonnet, and then over the roofline, the back of the car, feeding the air into the engine. There are some more. So look, as we come down, two either side on the bonnet here, and then the roof scoops up here, obviously feeding all that fresh air into the engine, through the engine cover underneath, and again down the side here. These are massive side vents here, and we've got two more here. And also down on the door sill line. I mean, the engine just needed so much cooling. The car doesn't feel particularly wide at the front, but as you move down, you then notice that you've got these huge wing mirrors protruding, and obviously these stick out even further because the booty of this thing just gets so wide that you need those to be stuck out a little bit further so you can actually see what's behind you, because once we get in the car you'll see there is really no rear visibility for the driver to look through the vents out the back here. Now towards the back we've got this lovely light cluster arrangement, and then you really see how wide this beast is. Now another way to identify the Diablo SV, other than its badging of course, is these black surrounds. I believe the earlier cars didn't have this, but this iconic SV badge really gives it away. And we hadn't seen the SV badge since the Miura, so this was the first car since that to wear that again, and actually this one's done very nicely in that similar typography just there. Four exhaust pipes poking out the back, and then you can see again these massive fans either side here. So you look down here, a massive fan there, and then again on the other side, just to keep the engine as cool as possible. Now it's got these absolutely massive Pirelli tyres on it, 335 in fact, and then we've got these gorgeous riveted alloy wheels with the black centres, which are kind of hiding the enormous Brembo brakes which are sitting behind there. Right, let's have a look at the engine, and it's quite easy to get into. We can just quickly turn that one that side and do the same the other side, push that, turn that, and then should be able to, and this is incredibly light, this. Fantastic, so I'll just lift that up, and then that reveals the V12 monster that lies beneath. And what's really cool about this actually, other than this massive engine block sat here, is that you've got this firing order imprinted into the engine cover there. How unusual is that? Following the four-wheel drive Diablo VT, the SV, or Super Veloce, was a return to a more dynamically pure machine, reverting to a rear-wheel drive setup and with more powerful engine tune. It could sprint to 0 to 60 miles an hour in 4.5 seconds and go on to a top speed of 202 miles an hour. And to help stop this monster, the Diablo SV got bigger front brakes with extra cooling, but crucially, no ABS. Under the engine cover is a 5.7 litre naturally aspirated V12, producing 510 brake horsepower, driving the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual transmission. And now it's time to do something I've been waiting a long time to do, since I was a teenager in fact, and that's open the doors, the scissor doors of a Lamborghini Diablo. I mean, is there anything cooler than that? I mean, it just didn't matter what you had, and I felt quite sorry for the other car manufacturers because, quite frankly, unless you had scissor doors, you weren't a supercar. It didn't matter. We didn't care what you had, how big the engine was. Lamborghini were smashing it with these things. I mean, they just looked so fabulous. What, of course, you don't appreciate when you have a poster of this car on your wall is how you get in the bloody thing in any other fashion than looking a bit of a wally. Oh, oh, banged my head. Squeeze in, and there we go. Right, see you the other side. Now it's a very familiar place to sit this, probably because I've sat behind a screen playing Need for Speed many a times, selecting the Lamborghini Diablo. So once you're nestled comfortably into your seat, you notice just the swathes of Alcantara everywhere, and that's really how these SVs were spec'd. Other things that you note is quite how simple it really is. You've got a very small leather steering wheel in front of you, and then the dials all analog as you would expect of a car of this era. Lovely white dials, and then we've got, you see the rev counter which goes around to 9,000 RPM and the speedometer to 220 miles an hour or 340 kilometers per hour. That is huge. I think this probably bottoms out at about 202 miles an hour if you were brave enough. The seats do move forward manually, which is excellent because you have got quite a long clutch pedal. We've got electric windows, we've got electric mirrors, the door handle here. You just sort of push the door up with your arm and then pull that back down again. Very easy to operate, less easy to get out of. The pedals are pretty close together, so for those of you who like to heel and toe, you'll be able to do that very comfortably. And again, they're then sort of offset slightly to the left, as you find in a lot of these Italian sports cars. Other things you notice are how wide this central transmission tunnel is. It's absolutely massive, and it's kind of very sort of thin, tinny box sitting in between you and the passenger. But my favourite thing has to be this lovely silver wand you get and this gated 5-speed gearbox. On the earlier cars, in the earlier Lamborghini Diablos, some of them had this sort of massive, unwieldy looking leather gear knob on the top, and it just didn't quite fit, but this one in the SV has got this lovely silver gear knob, which feels much better and looks a bit classier as well. The centre console with the switches and buttons for your air conditioning and climate control all look a bit dated. We've got an Alpine stereo there, so if I push that one, the front headlights flip up. We've got hazard lights, fog lights, but luxury wasn't Lamborghini's forte really until Audi took over and sort of finessed everything. At this point, it was about raw power and theatre, and that's what you get with the Lamborghini Diablo. You look into the rear view mirror and really sort of wonder why it's there at all you can see is the sort of black mesh and see the outline of the two vents over the engine covers, and that's about all you're getting for a rear view there. You do get the Raging Bull logos imprinted on the steering wheel here and on the air conditioning vents that kind of flip open and closed, and also you've got the nice SV embroidery in the headrest of the driver and passenger seat. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is about it on the interior. So you have a little immobiliser, we'll pop that in there. That's all you need to do. Move my seat forward a little bit. I can get on the clutch because I've left that in first gear. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. It's got a fly-off handbrake, so you just have to remember that, and that's down to your right-hand side. So ignition's on. I'm just going to pop it out of first. It's a lovely feel of this gated shifter, and then firing it up for the first time. Oh my word. That's going to wake the neighbours. It's like directing a Scud missile or something. You can hear those big fans behind you. It's there's a definite sense of something big's about to happen. It's quite unlike anything. Really start to notice those little pedals. Away we go. And the thing about this is, before the engine warms up properly, you're better off sort of scooching over from first into third, the owner tells me, rather than using second. So just wait for things to warm up a little bit. You can really feel the fans behind you, and you notice that actually there's not a lot else you can see behind you. I don't think that I've ever seen a Lamborghini Diablo out on the road. I mean, I've seen a few at the shows before, but really never come across one out in the wild. I mean, you are aware that there's this massive V12 lump strapped to your booty there. Your knees sit quite high, tucked underneath the steering wheel, and it is quite a small steering wheel. Now, if you're the sort of person that doesn't like to be noticed when you're driving around, then this perhaps isn't the right kind of car for you, because pretty much wherever you go, whatever you do in this, you're going to get attention. There's no sort of casually popping anywhere in this. I mean, you're going to create a crowd. Either people are going to be oogling out of their car windows, or they're going to be taking photos when you're parked, because it's really quite a rare sight to see a Lamborghini Diablo out on the road. The speedo is actually sort of buried quite far back actually, so it's not the easiest to see when the light's quite low. I mean, it's just afternoon now, a bit of cloud cover, and it's not the easiest to read. I mean, I think if you had the lights on, you'd be able to see it. It's quite dark in here with all that sort of dark Alcantara. Oh, that sounds so good, doesn't it? As I would do if I saw one of these, you'd end up sort of tailgating it to get a closer look, but that makes things quite disconcerting. I certainly don't blame the people for doing it, but yeah, when it's your first time driving one, it's a little off-putting, shall we say. Compared to the modern Lamborghinis, these just look so iconic now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a Murcielago, love an Aventador. They have all the drama and power you could ever possibly need, but before Audi got involved, there was just something slightly different about these Lamborghinis, something a little madder. I mean, you know, you just knew that you definitely didn't have the safety systems that now come with those cars. This, in this particular form, would really bite you in the arse. The ride is also a great surprise actually. It's surprisingly smooth. I expected it to be bumping me all over the place, but it's not at all. Oh, it's a great cruiser, this. Just eat up the motorway miles. When you wind her up, you really do feel that weight and the push in the middle of your back. I mean, this is just such an experience, because nowadays supercars are absolutely everywhere, and I suppose with all these great finance deals that you can get nowadays, they're much more accessible, but also much more mass produced. But this really was a time when it was unusual to see one of these out on the road, and you still don't. And my overriding memory of the Lamborghini Diablo is JK driving one for his Cosmic Girl video, I think it is. and they'd shipped the car out, or tried to ship the car out. Chap moving it with the transporter had damaged it. They got another one out there with instructions from JK that nobody should move it until he got there. And when he did get there, the front windscreen was smashed in, and if you watch the video, you can see his hair flapping away as he's driving around. Poor guy must have eaten a load of mosquitoes as he sang his lyrics, thrashing it around the countryside. Unbelievable. This is Lamborghini at its absolute best, and probably the most appropriately named car of all, the Diablo, the Devil. To find out more about this one, head over to collectingcars.com, check out the full listing, all the photos, and remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.